The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom. Tonight's episode, the documentary, A Disturbance in the Force, How the Star Wars Holiday Special Happened.
In 1978, Lucasfilm made a huge mistake they prefer we all forget. The Star Wars Holiday Special.
Lucasfilm is still saying, Mark, we shouldn't talk about that.
Nobody is allowed to mention this.
No, you don't remember?
It is so bad, it's not good.
You have to see the Star Wars Holiday Special to believe it. The Emperor said we can't show the special in this trailer, but rest assured you will see all the clips you can handle in the documentary film A Disturbance in the Force.
The Star Wars Holiday Special is sort of like the holy grail.
I wanted to see this more than I wanted to live.
We're starving as fans for anything Star Wars.
So funny and so stupid at the same time.
We have seen something that we weren't supposed to see. How did this happen?
To find answers, we traveled back and experienced the insanity of 1970s variety television.
When 70s TV was bad, there was no description for it.
How in the world is George Lucas allowing this to happen?
You intergalactic fool. Think you know about the Star Wars Holiday Special? You don't. A Disturbance in the Force. A story 45 years in the making.
Hey, it's the Goldbergs! It's the Goldbergs!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Podcasting After Dark. I am one half of the Pad team, Corey, a.k.a. Sleazy C. Joined with me, as always, my brother from another mother, Zach. I was trying to think of a Star Wars name for you. Do you have a Star Wars name? Or I'll say mine. The one I always use in any Star Wars video game, my Star Wars name is Cor Stevan.
Oh.
By the way, when Zach said "oh," he grimaced. He was like, "Oh, thanks."
You're welcome.
Do you have a Star Wars name?
Zor-El Sharif, or I don't know.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, Zach, the total snack and shaper.
Zor-El Shah.
And this week we are continuing our documentary series. My pick this week is called A Disturbance in the Force, How the Star Wars Holiday Special Happened. And as y'all heard last week, Zach brought us the blood and flesh, the real life and grisly, ghastly death of Al Adamson. And now we're kind of on to something a little bit more lighthearted. But as you heard in the last week's episode, there is a direct line from Al Adamson to the Star Wars Holiday Special because of Star Wars. So
it's not Bruce Vilanch either.
It's not, but we'll get into Bruce Vilanch. But Zach, before we go into all of this, I do have to ask, have you ever seen the Holiday Special in its entirety?
Well, not that long ago. In fact, roll back to, I believe, December of 2023, we covered the Boba Fett segment of this special. And so we talked a little bit about the Christmas special, and that was the first time I had ever watched it via Disney Plus.
So you watched the cartoon, but did you watch the entire holiday, like the entire thing?
I did.
That's on. You can't find that anywhere other than YouTube or whatever, because it's not on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I watched the entire thing that's on YouTube with the Wookiee subtitles, I believe.
Oh, so you did see the one with the Wookiee subtitles? Nice.
I did. Yes,
nice.
I because the Boba Fett thing is on Disney Plus, but the full thing is on YouTube, and I found it on YouTube.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, let's all agree that the Boba Fett cartoon is the best part of the entire thing. But
yeah,
it's I mean, it's wild. Obviously, it's wild. There's a whole documentary. There's a whole 90-minute documentary here talking about it. For me, I first saw it back in, comic book convention era days. I picked up the bootleg VHS way back in the day, probably mid 90s, maybe 95, 96, somewhere around there. I watched it once and I bought it probably just for the Boba Fett cartoon, but I watched the whole thing once and absolutely fucking hated it. I thought it was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my fucking life. But we'll get into all of that. Anyways, Zach, we don't really have any like cast and crew. Like last time we didn't really talk about like the director of the last documentary, the same director of Lost Soul, but this one doesn't really have anybody I kind of even recognize. So we're not even going to talk about cast and crew. So let's just kind of get into the documentary itself.
Yeah. I love how this opens, by the way, with, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk, or what is it like?
Will not be seen tonight because of the whatever ad that played before the holiday special aired.
It's great because it takes you back to that time. This was, I know it's not directed by him, but this was produced by, executive produced by Adam F. Goldberg. Adam F. Goldberg, who I actually taught his son when I was a teacher. When he was, I think, in the first or second season of the Goldbergs making that show. And he's a big time nerd, like we are. And, so his show, The Goldbergs, really pays homage to his love of the 80s, of all things 80s. And, he does his best. I think ABC probably sanitizes things and changes things up on him sometimes, but he does his best to convey that love because he really does have a legit love of pop culture from the 80s.
Yeah.
And so it's cool that he made this. There's a couple clips of the Goldbergs that share the love of this special. I was reminded that the kid on the Goldbergs, his voice is the voice in Camp Cretaceous, which is the Jurassic Park spin-off cartoon on Netflix, which is very good, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard it's very good.
It's very good, and they just dropped a new season, and it's really dark, like really scary, nightmare-inducing for little kids. I'd say for 10-year-olds, you could cause nightmares, because there's one particular character where you're like, is she meant to make me pee my pants? Because she's going to make me pee my pants. So anyways, that kid on the Goldbergs does one of the voices. I think he might also be in the Turtle movie. No, he's not. Anyways, so there's a little nod to the Goldbergs in this, which is cool. And this feels at times like I'm watching like the old school VH1 shows where they're interviewing celebrities, because there's a lot of celebrities sprinkled. Well, who we would consider celebrities. Like, the celebrities that are on this I feel like are ones that would hang out with us. Yeah. And when I say us, I mean the podcasting After Dark community that we've built, from the listeners to the patrons, et cetera, because it's like Kevin Smith and,
what's Mick Garris, the interview Mick Garris.
Yeah, who we've trashed, but let's be honest, he's doing stuff that we wish we could do. So, God bless the guy for making genre stuff.
And apparently he was one of the R2-D2 puppeteers on the holiday special. So I had no clue about that. Kyle Newman, who's the director of Fanboys, is interviewed on it. Steve Sansweet from Rancho Obi-Wan, which Myra and I went to. We visited Rancho Obi-Wan, which is outside San Francisco. We went there, I believe, last year. Jesus Christ, or the year before that? Oh my God, time. But we went to San Francisco and we went to Rancho Obi-Wan, and we had a private tour with it's with other people. It's not like by private, I mean you have to kind of book it in advance, and it's like a max of like 8 or 10 people, so it's really small. But we got to meet Steve Sansweet. I wore a shirt that I made on TeePublic that I got a cease and desist order from. But it says, the shirt said, "Star Wars is life, but Aliens is my favorite movie." And Steve Sansweet was like, "Oh," he's like, "Okay," he's like, "I can get behind that." And I was like, "Yeah, dude." They talked to Bob Mackey, the costume designer. They talked to Larry Ross, who has that comic book store in Burbank called Blast from the Past. It's it's right on Magnolia. It used to be like an old Bank of America that's been converted. But yeah, I was like, oh, that guy, I've been in that store before.
Great store, by the way. If you guys have never been on Magnolia in Burbank, that's a great block of like horror, comic books, geekdom, everything you want.
Yeah. But Zach, the person that I was most, I don't know, shocked by, taken aback by, was Bruce Valanche. And we had a sort of connection to Bruce Valanche. Real quick, they interview him because he was one of the writers for this. But you and I sort of know Bruce Valanche as like a Hollywood Squares kind of guy. But, he was like an old school variety act sort of writer back in the day. But Zach, why is he sort of in our orbit?
Yeah, so when we first started doing Podcasting After Dark and started interviewing people, someone caught wind of our show, and I won't name his name because I think the guy's kind of a piece of crap from things I've heard online. People connected with him, so he doesn't deserve to get a shout out. But he reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you guys want to book guests for your show?" Because this was like a common trope for publicists. Like, I'll get this guy on your show, but then you get me, but then you have to put one of my new upcoming stars on your show.
Right. I'll get you the guy that you want, but then you also have to do an interview with this person over here too.
Right. Which is fine. And some people do it, and that's not what we do. And nor does $2 late fee. But, he's like, "I see you got a lot of, great talent that you've interviewed. I can get you some guys." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Who can you get us?" He's like, "Well, I can get you the bread guy from Seinfeld," some like random, person that Corey, of course, knows from his Cartwright, a Seinfeld podcast that you all should listen to. But, some random guy who was on Seinfeld twice or something. And then he mentions Lou Diamond Phillips at one point. I'm like, I would love to get Lou Diamond Phillips on the show. And then he goes, "I can get you anybody like Bruce Valanche." And I'm like, he's like, was that a record that just scratched? And so I said, well, that would be great. But Lou Diamond Phillips, definitely would love to have him on the show. But how about Bruce Valanche? Yeah. Again, record scratching. And I'm like,
exactly comes to me with, he's like, Bruce Valanche. And I'm like, fuck no.
Why? Like, I'm like, why? Sure. And I mean, the closest brush I ever had with Bruce Valanche was I was performing at Genghis Cohen, this Chinese restaurant / like nightclub in Hollywood, and Bruce Valanche was hitting on me at one point, sitting across from me while I was eating my candy walnut shrimp. So no thanks. And so anyways, that was like 5 years ago. Yeah. And then a very well-known character actor was living with this guy.
This booker, this guy who books people. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the guy turned out to be a total lunatic and like flipped out on said actor. And that actor went to his social media. Some of our friends know who I'm talking about. Went to his social media and was like, "Can you help me with this guy?" Because the guy was posting some really weird stuff on said actor's Facebook page. And the guy's now like totally gone, I think, from the social media internets.
So we missed our chance. We missed our chance.
We had our chance. You blew it,
dude. The irony when he comes up on this, and the knowledge that he brings about this, I'm like, Kind of wish we interviewed Bruce Valanche now.
I mean, look, Bruce Valanche he's a comedy writer, you know, and he, besides Bruce Valanche, I mean, there's a who's who of like geek dudes on here, like Weird Al Yankovic and Kevin Smith and, you know, Paul Scheer and Seth Green, like great, you know, funny, Taron Killam, which I was kind of surprised. I'm like, actually, Taron Killam's hilarious in this. With his one-liners.
And he's a big Star Wars fan too, clearly.
Yeah. And all these guys are.
And Bobcat Gold.
Sorry.
Wait, how do you pronounce his last name?
Bobcat Goldthwait, who you won't recognize, by the way, because he looks like a country singer.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's cool. Like, it's got a lot of people who are like, oh, that guy's cool, you know. Those are the guys that perform in Hall H at Comic-Con, and now they're on my screen talking about Star Wars. But then Bruce Valanche, he had a huge role in this Star Wars special.
Yeah, he did. And, you know, kind of looking at who is interviewed in this versus last week's episode, the documentary Zach brought to the table, man, you can really see like what the, you know, executive producer Adam F. Goldberg, you know, really probably does. And I'm sure a lot of his stuff is what you know, or he was probably influential in bringing in a lot of these heavy names, man. Paul Scheer's a big fucking name, but it's funny because I think you mentioned it kind of felt like a VH1 behind the music thing because Paul Scheer used to do those 80s. Why. Yeah. You know, so it kind of felt like that. It almost felt like Paul Scheer was like, oh, this feels comfortable. I remember doing these.
Yeah, it's funny. I did this Megaforce documentary that who knows, maybe we'll cover that one next year because it's coming out this year. And you talk for a really long time about certain things and then they just chop it up and they throw it into the documentary. So I'm sure they're doing the same thing with that one. And it's so you don't know what, you know, it's not the actor's fault if they're kind of giving these like little one-liners and then they throw it in there. It's just the way they edited it. This definitely has more of a flashier Hollywood vibe to the last one we did. The last one we did is definitely a sleazy underground, you know, exploitation doc versus a mainstream, very mainstream doc. I gotta be honest with you, George Lucas does not come across as someone I want to have beers with at the end of this. He's somebody that I'll be like, okay, go sit up on your castle and think you're. I think he's a very socially awkward person.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's someone that he's probably on the spectrum to a degree. And maybe he's not a really pompous, but he's just not someone who you want to like hang with. And I think there's this fandom that gets built up around George Lucas specifically, where they're just like, I want to talk to the guy who did the thing. And you're like, actually, no, you don't want to talk to that guy. You want to talk to all the people that worked for him.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones with the really good stories.
Yeah. No, George Lucas, the notorious GL, is one of my top 3 favorite humans on the planet who I respect, admire, and like look up to, and how he like handles, from what we understand, how he handled decision-making processes and stuff, and how he was able to just let go of some things and move forward with this. I never want to meet him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
you don't.
I just don't. I truly don't, because I think I will be, you know, let down. I think, you know, it's like, hey, what'd you think about this? You know, and I know what he'd say. It's like, I just did it. I didn't put much thought into it. I just did it, you know, and which is what I respect about him. That's like, as a creative, that's what I look to, and like how he just does it. But at the same time, I sometimes don't think that there's any more under things other than the fact of, that looked cool, I did it, you know?
Yeah, there's a perfect example of that in this, where Jon Favreau, who's clearly a big Star Wars fan, makes a nod to, and we don't want to give everything away, because y'all should go out and get this. This is a great documentary to get. Before I say any more, you should all go out and buy the physical copy of this. We should be getting a percentage of this, by the way. Yeah. And you can support us by going to patreon.com/podcastingafterdark and support us. And then buy the Blu-ray. But yeah, Jon Favreau pays homage to the Boba Fett in this special, and it has the opportunity to talk to George Lucas about it.
And they even kind of show that scene, and George Lucas is like, just like, whatever. Yeah,
not really.
He's like, did you notice the Easter egg I put in there, George?
Yeah.
And George
he's
is
like, yeah, I
no,
noticed it. He's like, I don't really care.
Yeah, and he probably doesn't care. You know, I know people like this. I know these like super creative, awesome, like huge brain types where you're like, oh my God, you're like so talented. And then you talk to them and they're the most boring person to talk to on the planet. Yeah. And I'm like, that's probably George Lucas. No offense. You know, he just puts everything else into the work and admire the work, then talk to Bruce Vilanch.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, as much as we kind of shout on Bruce Vilanch, I would actually rather interview someone like him over George Lucas.
Well,
but
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
There's a dude in this, by the way. Who's the guy again? Who I didn't write all the names down, but he's wearing a treasure map, Hawaiian shirt. He's like a producer or something. I mean, a lot of these guys behind the scenes are pretty unfortunate looking now. One guy's neck looks like a testicles and everything. Yes, but that guy with the treasure map shirt, he's friends with Diallo.
Oh.
Yeah, I met him at LA or WonderCon last year.
I think I've met him too one time with Diallo. I that's funny you say that because he kind of looked familiar, but I just assumed he was like, a Hollywood type or something. But if he knows Diallo, then I actually probably have met him. And he's not the guy that has the testicles.
No, he's not. That guy is funny. That guy has actually one of the funnier statements in this doc because George Lucas is notorious for not even wanting to acknowledge this holiday special in canon in connection with the Star Wars universe. And they play clips and recreate moments of George Lucas basically shitting on this documentary, so to speak. And this guy who was interviewed at the end, he's like, there's lots of projects I've done that I love that my name is on. And there's lots of projects I've done that I don't love that my name is on.
Yeah.
Would I have wanted my name off of those projects that I didn't love? Yeah, but they're not. Yeah. So it is like, so what are you going to do?
Yeah. Meaning George Lucas should have kept his name on the holiday special.
Yeah. I mean, he essentially says that, and I totally agree with him. Like, tits and warts and all, right? What that expression is.
Yeah.
And like, Patton Oswalt is on this, and he kind of doesn't hold back with his somewhat disdain of the prequels, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? And I like that they included that because it's like, look, some people love them, like Corey, and some people don't, and that's fine. There's people in the middle, but just acknowledge them because it's all part of the universe.
Yeah,
there are characters in this. They made figures based on this, which to this day, I'm surprised they haven't released the female Wookiee.
Mala, fucking when she looks at Han Solo like she wants to fuck him, I'm like, that is wild for TV.
Oh, it is
almost as wild as Itchy watching porno in the living room. Is that Lumpy? Whichever one.
I think it's Itch. It's the grandpa.
It's Itchy.
Right?
Yeah, Itchy's the grandpa. Yeah.
Lumpy's the little child.
Watching a video of Diane Carroll basically having sex and then singing.
Yeah, because that was supposed to be Cher.
Yeah.
And it's a little weird seeing Diane Carroll there. She's not. I mean, it is what it is. She's not as sexy as Cher to me.
What was she known for? Was she a singer?
She was a singer, performer, yeah.
Is there any song that I would know or anything? We don't need to Google Diane Carroll.
Yeah, we do. I'm just gonna pull up Yeah,
there's got to be something.
I think she's one of those personalities like people knew her back then.
Right.
Would Cher have been a bigger get and more of a sex symbol? Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
But like there are moments throughout this special, and what I like about this documentary is they interview Donny Osmond, who's a really cool dude, by the way. Like
he seems awesome.
Yeah, that's a guy. What I love about him is he seems embarrassed by the stuff he did back in the day, but he's like, but I did it, and it brought joy to people. So you know what? That's what matters.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So the documentary does a great job of having great interviewees on it and everything, but it also does a great job of framing what entertainment was like when this happened and like sort of like why this happened, you know? So it gets into these late 70s, you know, comedy variety acts. We got to talk about that kind of stuff, but it also gets into like this era, this weird era in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and it really does a good job of kind of like setting the stage of like why this had to happen. You know, like when A New Hope came out at the time, just called Star Wars, it was rebranded A New Hope on later releases. That's when they added the episode 4 to it, but at the very first release, it was just Star Wars. That's all it was called. But famously, there were no toys at the time. So, you know, you had the early bird special with the toys, you mail in, yada, yada, yada. But come the Christmas of 1978, even though A New Hope's already been out for a year, you know, and been re-released, it's still playing in theaters, but like the toys are now out. They need something to push these toy sales because there's no Empire Strikes Back out yet or anything like that. And George Lucas was just putting this out everywhere. So it's like sci-fi wasn't big at the time, even though when Star Wars landed, it was a cultural phenomenon. But leading up to that, you know, and all around that same time, just to kind of keep it in the zeitgeist, like, yeah, he would let fucking Darth Vader, Chewbacca, and stormtroopers be on the Donnie and Marie Osmond show. Osmond. Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, those stormtroopers costumes look great. They were not like rip-off stormtrooper costumes. They were real stormtroopers costumes dancing. And not gonna lie, stormtroopers look kind of cool dancing, you know? And that was his brothers. That was the Osmond brothers and everything doing that. And you had Chris Christopherson playing Han Solo on the episode, you know, and it's just like, but even Donnie Osmond
Chris Christopherson as Han Solo was pretty badass, actually.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I'd take Chris Christopherson any day. Come on, let's get out of here.
Dude, I mean, me too. But like, I liked how Donnie Osmond was like, nowadays, like, you would never see that, like, because they would never let you do that. And he's like, and here we are having Chewbacca hugging, you know, Darth Vader, but everyone's a friend in the Osmond universe, you know. And I loved it. Like you said, he kind of like owns it. But like I said, they kind of frame these variety comedy acts back in the day, and I want to just throw these out at you, and you tell me if you've ever seen them. They mentioned the Wayne Newton at SeaWorld, you know, whatever that special was. Did you ever see that back in the day?
No.
Okay. The Paul Lynde Halloween special?
Paul Lynde, you mean?
Oh, yeah, Paul Lynde, yeah. Yeah.
Not Lynde. No, I didn't see his special.
Was Paul Lynde, was he one of the...
He was a regular on game shows and stuff like that, too.
Okay. The Brady Bunch variety show. Did you watch that?
I think I probably did, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
No. I'm going to say no.
The Richard Pryor show?
No, but I want to.
I know, me too, dude.
Richard Pryor's like, you know, doing drugs probably in between commercial breaks.
I'm sure. But like, that was the era, man. Like those old variety shows. Like, so you might not have seen a lot of these, but do you remember? Because I kind of don't, other than like stuff that was sort of already on syndication, like the Carol Burnett show, which is like a comedy variety show. But by the time I was watching TV, they were kind of phased out. But you're a couple years older than me. Do you have any recollection of these just being more mainstream than just the Carol Burnett show?
Oh, I mean, these are the things our parents watched, you know. These were the things you had to watch when your parents were like, okay, we're watching TV as a family, you know,
yeah.
Or you're at your grandparents' house and they're like, let's watch Grand Ole Opry. And you're like, oh God, really? Like, this is that kind of cheeseball stuff. And it was cheesy then. It was stupid then. I watched the Carol Burnett show, probably because of Harvey Korman and Tim Conway.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was a big Tim Conway fan.
Yeah, those two are gold, and Harvey Korman can do no wrong. But,
except for in the holiday special.
I mean, I don't think so. I thought he was amazing in that, too. I was like, you could do no wrong in this, too, sir. But it's just so, you know, so like, yeah, so cheesy. So I didn't watch it. If I did watch it then, it's because I had to watch it. I'm sure Diallo watched all that stuff because I feel like it's a little more his age demographic because he's like, what, 5 years older than me, I think. And I was like, I would only watch this stuff if I was forced to. Would I watch this Star Wars special back in the day? I probably wouldn't have. And so for all the kids that are like, I watched it and I loved it. And like, did you really love it though? Like, no, you didn't. Even, I don't think kids watched this and loved it back in the day because there's some weird stuff throughout this whole thing.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hello, and welcome to BAMPIRE. BAMPIRE is a wildly ambitious, independent horror comedy film.
It is fun, sexy, thrilling, and unpredictable from start to finish.
On the surface, BAMPIRE is a slasher flick set in the 90s.
References Bambi, but it's not just, oh, Bambi, but horror. It's its own thing, and it has a real story to tell.
BAMPIRE is a story that I wrote to encapsulate my own experience growing up in the wilds of Alaska, seeing humankind interact with nature.
So to me, BAMPIRE is just like a fantastic horror comedy, just like a classic kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, early Scream era.
It's also a gore fest that will make you wonder if we took the actors back there and really mauled them like that.
It is going to be so wildly entertaining.
It's visceral, it's energetic, it's emotional, it's popcorn, it's candy. It feels like watching a movie. It's a movie.
And now, back to the show. It's interesting when you think about it because when the writers, and I don't know if it was Bruce Valanche mentioned it, but somebody mentioned it, they're like, we thought this was going to be played every year, like the Charlie Brown Christmas, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, like we were going to get residuals for this forever. And it aired literally once and just got dumped. But it's because even at the, it's you know, and this is how the documentary frames it, you know, Star Wars was fresh and hip and young, whereas this felt like it was a part of old Hollywood. I think Kevin Smith talks about it. It's like this just, it felt old Hollywood. I mean, like they got Art Carney, you know, they got B. Arthur on here, you know, and yes, Harvey Korman is, you know, I like him personally. I liked him too, but I don't think he was that funny on here. But like, you know, like Art Carney was already way past, you know, his prime.
It's really outdated stuff. And they show what this special, they show how this special has lived on throughout the decades, where, you know, Star Wars at Disneyland is on what is it, Wookiee Day or whatever, Life Day.
Life Day, Life Day.
They celebrate that at Disneyland and have exclusive figures and exclusive cups, and I think that's awesome. Look, I think that stuff's great. I think when you keep, no matter how cheesy something is, if you keep it alive with fandom, I think that's wonderful. I think the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special, you know, is so I actually really love it, but it is definitely cheesy. But I wish they had like exclusive cups that came out every year or celebrated, you know, Eternia's holiday every year. Like I think that's awesome. The Life Day figures that they released for that are cool looking. And I'm like, that's great. I love that whether you like the spin-off series or not of Star Wars, you know, just be happy with the fact that it's getting made. And we're not just getting stuck with like, you know, other things that just don't hit the mark. Like this I love that we're continuing it on. You know, so many genres die. Right? Western genre died and then maybe will come back. Zombie genre died and came back and then died again. Yeah. You know, like these things go in waves. And I love that Star Wars is like really trying to just stay alive and relevant. And I don't know. I love it. Like for me, I think that's what is important is that they keep this documentary is keeping this special alive.
Yeah, and like you said, like you can actually find Life Day action figures at Disneyland, and they even brought like Life Day into The Mandalorian, so that kind of makes it canon and stuff like that. And I do think you're right. Like I don't think nowadays we would ever get anything like this or the He-Man She-Ra special, because I think there'd be too many test groups would just be like, no, or, too many, like, there's just too much money involved for them to fail. And they have to, like, overthink everything. And the documentary does a great job of really explaining to you how this happened. Like, it started out as an hour-long thing. Then, when they greenlit it, it started out as an hour-long thing. But over time, and again, the one thing the documentary kind of doesn't mention is that Star Wars kept getting re-released in the theaters. Like, it just kept, like, it would just stay in the theaters. So, like, it kept building momentum and everything. And so, like, all of a sudden, I forget if it's ABC or CBS, whoever the broadcasting company was, they were like, well, can you make this an 1.5 hour show? Can you make this a 2-hour show? And, they literally, the producers had one meeting with George Lucas, and that was it. And I mean, that was back when it was only an hour-long show and it was just about the Wookiees' home planet. Now that it's a 2-hour-long variety act, they have still no connection with George Lucas whatsoever, because by this point, he's already working on pre-production for Empire Strikes Back. Like, that's his entire time is spent on that. And I just feel like this could never happen nowadays. Like, it's such a product of its time.
It is. And a side note is the director they initially hire for the show only lasts like 4 days.
Yeah.
And then
he like blows their entire budget like in 4 days too.
Yeah. And they interview him, and it's really funny. It's an audio recording, and he's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. If you guys want to put this, you can use it for whatever you want, but I just don't want to talk about it anymore. Which it's kind of a funny clip, because you're like, dude, why not?
Yeah,
just go for it. Like, if you're going to crap on it, but why do you got to be so bitter about it? It happened like 30 years ago. Who cares?
Yeah. That director's name is David Akamba. And he's mostly known for a 1973 movie called Slipstream, 4 on the Floor. Like, it's a lot of TV stuff and some interesting, nothing really stands out to me, to be honest with you. But yeah, and then they brought in a new guy to sort of replace him, but then that guy couldn't edit it at all. Like, he got brought in, but he was like, I can't edit this at all. Like, I have another obligation to go do. And I think he kind of regretted that, because he said he's always edited everything he's ever done. I don't know if he would have actually been able to salvage this at all, but yeah, it was interesting. At least he showed up for the interview. Like, at least he was on the interview for this documentary.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's worth salvaging in this special. I think the performance by Jefferson Starship is really good, and I love that they have one of the members of Jefferson Starship interviewed for it.
Yeah.
Because they have a song in there, and the song is, I kind of like the song that is featured in the special, but it's really random.
Yeah.
And it doesn't like everything else. All these little vignettes and bits they do throughout. The Boba Fett cartoon is really random. Like, what does that have to do with the special, other than it just being a really kick-ass cartoon that they put in this?
Yeah.
The Wookiees are still horrendous looking. It's still the best part. The Wookiees are horrendous looking. They're horrible looking. They're very uncomfortable to look at.
Yeah. Especially the grandpa with his mouth. Like, I don't know what's going on with his mouth, dude.
Yeah, he's got these like weird, I mean, what would be considered now DSLs in Los Angeles, with the collagen up the wazoo. But and they talk for extended period of time in Wookiee.
Yeah.
And it's not translated, that someone went and took the time later on in life to do that. But they're like, well, Art Carney was there to fill in the dialogue for the Wookiees. It's like, actually, but he didn't really do that though. Like, it's just kind of fluff scenes. Yeah, the execution is just, I think they talk about this, that the people who made this are not Star Wars fans. They're not familiar with but this is only based off of one movie, you know, and I think that's also something people need to consider too.
Yeah, at the time when this came out, we only had A New Hope. We had nothing else. We had no Empire Strikes Back. We didn't even have like the novel Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Alan Dean Foster, which kind of inhabited that weird era in between Star Wars A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And if you ever get a chance to read it, it's kind of cool because it was also a treatment for what a potential TV series could be, and the book is written in a way that it could be filmed on the cheap. And by that I mean it only takes place on one planet. The planet has extensive fog, so they could kind of cover up the background and everything. The funny thing is, you actually saw that planet in the Solo movie, but that was taken from the Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which is no longer canon. But Alan Dean Foster is a famous writer who's done a lot of movie adaptations. He ghost wrote the adaptation of Star Wars. It says by George Lucas, but Alan Dean Foster kind of wrote it from George Lucas's script, you know. But yeah, I love that era. I really do enjoy the era in between. And it's similar to what we talked about on Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, where that was the era between Nightmare on Elm Street, Night of the Living Dead, and Dawn of the Dead. And so everything got solidified with Dawn of the Dead and the whole zombie genre. Everything we know up to today got solidified with Dawn of the Dead. But there was that fun era in between where people didn't really know which direction this genre was going to go. And we got awesome movies like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. And I think Shockwaves was in that era as well. And so, you know, there's a fun time in Star Wars history. The comic books that took place, the Marvel comics that took place between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Because once Empire hits, it's not just everyone's favorite movie, Star Wars movie, for a fucking reason. It hit hard because it's a damn good movie and it's a damn good sequel, and it took everything that you loved and expanded upon that. But once that hit, Star Wars became Star Wars. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is a different era. You know, that nowadays we have space filled all the time with content, right? If there's a gap in between movies, then there's a TV show that's made,
or comic books,
or a comic book, or a video game, or podcast, audio drama, you know, to continue the lore and continue the fantasy building, so that you never have a break. But back in the 70s and 80s, there were really long gaps in between. And so this is kind of an anomaly to have like something fill that void in between the two movies. It's not good, but they tried. And so I give them an A for effort and an F for execution, you know, or maybe a D because of the Boba Fett special, or maybe a C, I guess, because the Boba Fett special is so good, it elevates it so much more.
It does.
It really does. And, you know, Mark Hamill's interviewed in this, and he clears up that long-standing rumor about the makeup that he had to cover up his scars, and the plot point that was allegedly made in Empire. That was the scene with the
Wampa.
But yeah, was created to cover up his scars from his accident. That's all fabricated. None of that's true, and I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. I'm like, this is the first time I'm learning that. I'm just as shocked to learn that as I was to learn that that kid from The Growing Pains was not Marilyn Manson.
Kind of wish it was, though. In a weird
I know,
way,
right?
So.
I know. But we'd be remiss, dude, if we didn't talk about the B. Arthur singing scene, because they do dedicate a lot of time in the documentary to that. And even the guy who like one of the people that worked on, he was like, man, we put in so many hours for that. Like, you know, like just you put in so much work and for it to turn out just meh. Like it's just a big ball of meh.
Yeah, I kind of equate those older actors who you're just like have seen who've seen their time come and maybe should do something else or pivot to like TikTok people now, where you're like, why is this person relevant right now? Why am I listening to this person sing or this person talk when there's all these other people out there that could be so much better? Like B. Arthur, really? Of all the people, I know people would be like, oh my God, you're crapping on B. Arthur. I'm not crapping.
Well,
she just shouldn't have been casted
for this. She shouldn't have been for this because she was
put back on Golden Girls.
Yeah. Or, I think at this point it was probably Maude or whatever, you know, but like, no, it's not that we have any problem with B. Arthur. I think she's an amazing talent, but it goes to what Kevin Smith was saying of how like this production just felt old Hollywood, and whereas Star Wars itself felt so fresh and new.
Well, yeah, you cast Art Carney in this kind of like heroic role, but make him comedic too. It obviously,
and he's really old.
Then he's really old. It really should have gone to a younger guy, young hunky guy. You know, if that character was maybe a little bit stronger, maybe that would have been a Star Wars canon character. Maybe they would have brought his character into, you know, The Mandalorian decades later.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Mark Hamill's makeup was insane in this. It's the worst makeup I've ever seen.
And it's kind of cool the way they explain that, though, because they're like, they acknowledge the resolution as time goes on. In repeats, it gets less and less. So the makeup that they put on him, the people who did the makeup typically work on Broadway and theater. So it had and it
caked
was
on sort of, it was thick makeup, you know?
Right. And now we're living in a day where everything's high res and fixed up. So it looks worse now than it did back then.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, Harrison Ford's in it. Carrie Fisher's in it singing a little number. I think she's braless in it as well, which is always nice.
Of course you noticed that.
Of course, buddy. But yeah, dude, the family, my God, the family were just terrible. Like the Itchy, Lumpy, and Mala, and you know, Itchy watching the porno with Diane Carroll. It was really fucking weird. Lumpy just looks really weird. Mala wanting to fuck Han Solo looked really weird. And yeah, it's really, the whole thing is it's really fucking weird. And I really do think that Lucasfilm, they should just clean it up and put the whole damn thing on Disney Plus. I mean, why not? We have the Ewok special. We have the Caravan of Courage. Those don't look great either. You know what I mean? But at least we have the Faithful Wookiee, because the cartoon, the Boba Fett cartoon, because that really is the best part of this entire thing. But this documentary, I think, does a great job of not just, you know, informing us as to sort of like what happened, but it also does a great job of like placing the holiday special in history and like why it happened in the time that it happened and what was happening around it, like, you know, 70s comedy, you know, variety acts and stuff like that. I think the documentary does a good job framing what happened with this infamous TV special.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad it was made, because it pays respect to everyone who made it pays respect to everyone who made it.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't shit on the creatives, but it does sort of shit on the holiday special itself. It doesn't shit on the creatives, because they're actually talking to the creatives and they're explaining, like, here's what we thought was going to happen. Here's what we had the budget to do. And then, you know, the producers were, you know, based on a sort of old school mentality.
Right.
And it was a perfect storm of bad. Whereas, you know, Star Wars itself is a perfect storm of good and lightning in a bottle. This was just is the exact opposite of that phrase, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, buddy. And I mean, I'm glad you've also seen it. I watched this with Myra, and she had never actually seen the holiday special in its entirety. She did express that she wished she had seen it maybe before going into this. I was like, well, you kind of saw everything you sort of need to see. And she has seen the cartoon, the Faithful Wookiee cartoon. But, you know, I would say if you've never seen it, go watch the YouTube video of it. I mean, may God have mercy on your soul. Go watch it before you watch this. But I think this is a must watch for anyone who's a Star Wars fan and anyone who has seen the holiday special.
I think you should watch the documentary first because it'll make you appreciate the special a little bit more. Because you might watch the special and go like, God, I can't watch this anymore. I'm turning it off.
Yeah.
That's
no,
my
I think
take.
I think you're right about that. I think that's actually a good point. Actually, watch it after you watch the documentary because, yeah, you're right. You'll see the love that they tried to put into it. It just didn't work out, you know.
And then go watch the cartoon droids because that cartoon rules.
Well, then same studio, Nelvana, who did they did the holiday special, the cartoon there. They also did that movie Rock and Rule, which I've never seen. But they were apparently, I think they were going to do the heavy metal movie, but they turned it down for Rock and Rule.
Yeah, they're a great Canadian animation company. I just love the style. Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea. Like, it's just avant-garde. It's very artistic looking.
Yeah, I mean, go back and listen to last year's TV Obscura. We talked about Christmas episodes. I mean, the Faithful Wookiee cartoon, it still looks good to today, man. Like, the animation's amazing. The colors are just, you don't see a cartoon like this, like, at all on TV nowadays.
No, you don't. You don't. I love drawing this way. These are characters that I like to draw like this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Well, buddy, this was, I love our documentary month. We have one more movie breakdown that we're going to be doing this month. It's not a documentary, but it's a Patreon pick, so we're going to, squeeze it in and everything. But August is still our documentary month, and between A Disturbance in the Force and Flesh and Blood, we had two different sides of the coin, but yet weirdly connected in sort of their era and where they fit in the history of film and television.
Who would have thought?
Who would have fucking thought? But yeah, man, did you have fun this month with these documentaries?
Yeah, it got me excited for next year's picks, of which I think I already picked out the one I want to do. So, yeah, I'm excited to dig deeper into something a little more, edgier. I went edgier. You went, it's just what we do. You and I do this.
Yeah.
I end up going like kind of darker, old school. And then you kind of, go more modern, like wider audience.
Yeah.
So
broader audience. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love our picks are distinctly different, but then also connected at the same time.
Yeah. It's perfect. It's almost like we planned it, but we didn't.
Exactly.
Oh, well, buddy, we talked about last episode. We talked about what you guys are covering this month on $2 late fee. So I'll just say swing on over to podcastingafterdark.com. We have a full merch store over there. You can pick up a t-shirt. You can also get, find links to all of our various podcatchers. You can message us. You can find links to our social media and all that kind of stuff. And of course, if you're feeling nasty and want to throw down some money, then go check us out on Patreon. Zach and I, every month we do Wrap Up After Dark on the $2 tier. And then on the Tour de Force tier, that's the $5 tier, we are covering Donnie C, Don Coscarelli's entire filmography. Right now, we're probably about a third of the way through, but if you sign up at that tier, you will get an entire 26 or 27 episodes, which took us, over 2 years to record, of John Carpenter's filmography. So you got a lot of content over there, especially, and also some bonus stuff too that we'll just drop occasionally. So yeah, full a full plate of content over on Patreon, just like $2 Late Fee has. And Zach, you guys have a website, $2latefee.com and TWO. But like, what do you guys cover on your all's Patreon? Just like, what are the different shows that you guys have on your Patreon?
We have a back catalog of amazing stuff. Everything from Why Does Zach Own This? It's a show where I talk about the most weird things that I own, movie related. What Does Dustin Know? It's a trivia show we do, and it's turned now into a monthly trivia show we do on our YouTube channel, but we play for patrons. Patrons can win prizes if they are chosen to be played for on the show. We have Tales from the Video Store, where we cover crazy antics that Corey has been on before as well. We've crazy antics that have taken place in the video store days. And now we're turning that a little bit into a tribute because we've lost so many notable performers this year. So we did a tribute to Dabney Coleman. This month in August, we're doing a tribute to Lou Gossett Jr., talking about movies we rented in the 80s of said actors from the video store. So really proud about that. And our Patreon is continuing to evolve. In the coming months, we're going to be adding some Territory Marks exclusive things. So if you're a wrestling fan, we're adding a new tier to our Patreon, patreon.com/$2 late fee, where we'll be doing some exclusive content with a show called Legends of the Territories.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And look for next month, September, to be the Podcasting After Dark $2 Late Fee crossover month. We already have the interview in the can, and if you're a Patreon member for either of our sites, you know who the interview is, and so you probably know what the movie we're going to be talking about, but we'll save that for wrap up. But all next month is going to be the crossover month, so it's going to be great. And any Patreon members that we have that are doing, the movie picks, we're going to push them a little bit forward. But yeah. It's always fun, man. That's going
to be a wild month. I will also do a cheap plug for $2 Late Fee. We do an annual fundraiser for a charity called Momentum Wheels for Humanity. It provides wheelchairs for people in need all globally. And last year we raised a little over $5,000 in like 3 hours, which was great. And we have celebrities on the show.
This is Matt Adler and Laura Sangiacomo's foundation, right? Charity foundation?
Yes. Matt Adler from the movie North Shore, Laura Sangiacomo from Sex, Lies, and Videotape. They're married.
Just Shoot Me, which I love that show, by the way.
Yeah, I know you do. We're going to have a bunch of celebrity appearances on the show. People we've had on the show before. Maybe some people we've never had before.
Nice.
And we're looking into that. But we have been I've already seen some of the prizes that are coming down the pipe that are going to be auctioned off, and they're awesome. And I'm really blown away. Literally everybody I've reached out to and said, would you be a part of this? They've agreed to do it. So that is going to be September 21st. You'll hear me talk a lot about that on other episodes of Podcasting After Dark and any other appearance I can do on any other podcast, because it's a great charity. There's a lot of great charities in the world, but then sometimes some charities don't get the attention that they deserve, and we try to give this one a little bit more than normal. So anyways, September 21st, it's a Saturday. It's live on our YouTube $2 Late Fee channel. Be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Musical performances, past guests, doing some silly stuff, and it's going to be good times.
It always is, buddy. It always is. And as always...
Hey, this is Bruce Valanche. I just want to say I would love to come on your show. Anytime you want to have me on, I'll be happy to just drag myself over to your place. And until then, we'll catch you on the dark side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits two challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a Surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.